thousands of people died. And eventually the Pakistanis, they gave up. They said, speak whatever you want. And they, so they separated. And that those people, they said, we want this to be known as Bangladesh, which literally means the country of the Bengal. Bangla. So, while performing Sankirtan in Ramakeli Gram, the Lord danced and sometimes lost consciousness due to love of God. While he was in Ramakeli, an unlimited number of people came to see the Lord, to see his lotus feet. At that time, when the Mohammedan ruler, who was Nawab Hussain Shah, they referred to him as the king of Bengal, because he was ruling all of Bengal. He heard of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's influence in attracting innumerable people, and he was very astonished. He began to speak as follows. He said, such a person who is followed by so many people without giving them charity, he must be a prophet. He concluded, I can understand this fact. He is not an ordinary man. He must be a prophet. So the king, the Mohammedan ruler, he ordered his chief magistrate, do not disturb this Hindu prophet out of jealousy. Let him do whatever he likes. Prabhupada says, even a Mohammedan king, a Muslim king, could understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can have a transcendental position, like a prophet. When the king asked his assistant, Keshav Chatri, to give him news of the influence of this traveling prophet, Keshav Chatri, knowing everything about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tried to avoid the conversation and play down, not giving much importance to Lord Chaitanya. He was in his mind thinking that if the king, if the ruler now thinks that something big is going on because of Lord Chaitanya, he might become angry and cause trouble. So his chief assistant said, this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just a mendicant touring different places of pilgrimage. And really only a few people come to see him. But in fact it was thousands. People were walking on foot. Thousands. They knew, the word had got out. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not just an ordinary person. So, after pacifying the Nawab in this way, Keshava Chatri, the magistrate, sent a Brahmin messenger to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requesting him to leave the country without delay. He's just afraid that this Nawab might make trouble, come there with his army. And as they were accustomed to do, they just killed many people. However, in private, the Nawab inquired from Dabir Kash. Dabir Kash will later come to be known as Rupa Goswami. He's in his payroll also, he's working as minister. Dabir Kash began to speak the glories of the Lord. He says, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gave you this kingdom that you are now ruler of, and whom you accept as a prophet, he has taken birth in your country. This is due to your good fortune. He's very very diplomatic, I should say. He says, a prophet always desires your good fortune, and by his grace, all of your business will be successful. By his blessings, you will attain victory wherever you go. Of course, now likes to hear this. He said, and then Dabir Kas, who's Rupa Goswami, says, why are you questioning me about him anyway? It is better that you question your own mind. Because after all, you are the king of the people. So you are the representative of the Supreme Lord himself. Therefore, you can understand this situation better than me. Thus, Sri Rupa Goswami informed the king about his mind in a way of knowing who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. He assured the king that whatever occurred in his mind could be considered as true evidence. The king now replied, yes, what you say is true. I consider Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now I'm speaking. There's no doubt about it. Because his mind has been sweetened by telling him that you'll be blessed, you'll be successful, everything will go good. Because, so he's like, he wants to believe that. So after having this conversation, the king entered his private house, and then Rupa Goswami, at that time, who was known as Dabir Kash, also returned to his residence. After returning to his residence, Dabir Kash and his brother, Sakar Malik, that's Sanatana Goswami, they decided to go and see the Lord incognito, like disguise himself, and go to see him. So nobody would know anything. Because after all, they are ministers in the government. It's a tricky situation. If they don't know what this Nawab is capable of doing, if he thinks that they're going to see him. He knew that they were formerly Hindus. He knew this about them. But yet, he wanted them on his cabinet. He wanted them to work for him. And they were doing a fantastic job. They were so brilliant, highly educated. So, in the dead of night, the two brothers, Dabir Kash and Sakar Malik, went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he's in their area. He's in Ramakeli. And they live in Ramakeli. So they're going to see him incognito. At first they met Nityananda Prabhu, who was a traveling companion of Lord Chaitanya, and Haridas Thakur, two great personalities. Then Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur told Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that these two personalities have come to see him. These names, Dabir Kash and Sakar Malik, these are Mohammedan names. Prabhupada comments. So as officials of the government, of the Nawa, they adopted many Mohammedan customs, not just changed their name, even the way they dressed and everything. They dressed like the Muslim would dress. In great humility, when the two brothers got near to the Lord, they took bunches of straw between their teeth, and each of them binding a cloth around their necks, they fell down on the road like a rod before the Lord. Upon seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the two brothers were overwhelmed with joy, and out of humility, they began to cry. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked them to get up, and he assured them of all good fortune. The two brothers got up, and again taking straws in their teeth, they humbly began to offer prayers with folded hands to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They said, Jaya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dayamoy Patita Pavana Jaya Jaya Mahashaya. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, most merciful Savior of the fallen souls. All glories to the Supreme Personality. Then they continued speaking. They said, Sir, we belong to the lowest class of men, and our association and our employment is also of the lowest type. You're in the government, but it's a Muslim ruler. So they said, therefore we cannot introduce ourselves to you. We are very much ashamed of who we are, standing here before you. Prabhupada comments, although these two brothers were born, they actually belong to a most respectable Brahmin family by birth. But they presented themselves as very low. They come from a Brahmin family from South India, Karnataka family. But unfortunately, because of being associated with the Mohammedan government, their service and customs, their behavior resembled those of the Mohammedans. And as we know, because of this, the Brahmin community ostracized them. They said, you cannot enter our temples. So they were fallen, and they accepted it. Prabhupada says, according to Shastra, there are three kinds of birth. The first birth is from the womb of mother. Second birth is the acceptance of the reformatory method. And the third birth is acceptance by a spiritual master. One becomes abominable by adopting an abominable profession, or by associating with people who are naturally abominable. Rupa and Sanatana Goswami still known now as Dabir Kash and Shakamali, they associated with the Mohammedans who were naturally opposed to Brahminical culture. And they were also opposed to cow protection. They didn't accept these things, the Muslims. And they are ruling that area. So by the symptoms of a person, one knows which caste he belongs to. So when the Hindus looked at them, they thought, these are Muslims. They become Muslims. They've been converted. They're working for the Muslim ruler who's against Brahminical culture. He's against cow protection. And they're working for him. So they're ostracized. Prabhupada says, it is clearly stated in the Bhakti Ratnakara, that is a book by one of Mahaprabhu's followers. It is clearly stated there that because Shakar Malik and Dabir Kash associated with lower class people, they introduced themselves as belonging to the lower classes, even though they would have been born in respectable Brahmin families. Goswami and Sanatana continue. Dear Lord, let us inform you that no one is more sinful than us, nor is there any offender like us. Even if we wanted to mention our sinful activities, we would immediately become ashamed. I want to speak of us giving up those activities. Dear Lord, you have incarnated just to deliver the fallen souls. But you should consider that in this world there is no one as fallen as ourselves. Does this sound familiar? This is what's his name? Narottam Das Thakur. A few years later, he wrote in a song, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Doya Koramore. He wrote, and in that song, he expresses these very things that were stated by Rupa and Sanatana. About Parampara. They're following his version. Two of them presented themselves as being most fallen. Narottam says, I am the most fallen. They continued, they said, my Lord, you have delivered the two brothers, Jagai and Madai. We heard all about it. In those days, there's no internet. You know, but they still, news traveled. You know? Imagine this. No telephones, no television. But yet, they knew. They said, we've heard you have delivered these two brothers, Jagai and Madai. But to deliver them, you didn't have to exert yourself so much. Because, yes, it's true, these brothers, Jagai and Madai, belong to the Brahmin caste. Like Rupa and Sanatana. And their residence, however, their residence was in a holy place. Navadvip. And they never served low-class people. They never worked for the Muslims or anything. to the abominable activities of the rulers. So they present themselves, we are much worse. We were working for them. But Jagai and Madai, compared to us, they're like saints. They continued, they said, Jagai and Madai, they only had one fault. They were addicted to sinful activity. However, volumes of sinful activity can be burned to ashes simply by a dim reflection of chanting your holy name. Prabhupada comments. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami presented themselves as being lower than Jagai and Madai. And they're given reason why we are lower than them. When Rupa and Sanatana Goswami compared themselves to Jagai and Madai, they realized that they were inferior to Jagai and Madai. Because the Lord had no trouble in delivering Jagai and Madai. One little incident took place, you all know. This was because, despite the fact that they were addicted to sinful activities, in other ways, their life was brilliant. We never heard this described about Jagai and Madai. Goswami is not saying, yeah, there was some fault there. They're not just, they were the worst. But they said, apart from that, let's not get too hung up on that. Apart from that, they're addicted to sinful activity. Their lives was brilliant. So this is another way of looking at Jagai and Madai. Because they belong to the Brahmin caste of Navadvip, such Brahmins were pious by nature. And although Jagai and Madai had been addicted to some sinful activities, it was due to bad association. And therefore those unwanted things could vanish simply by the chanting of the holy name. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, our attachments and sinful habits, these are small things. It's like mushrooms. Mushrooms has no roots. You can pull them out of the ground easy. So, these can be given up easily if they take to the chanting. And that was Prabhupada's conviction. That if they take to the chanting, the foreigners, the Westerners, they can give up these things which they were born and raised into, like eating meat, etc. Another point for Jagai and Madai was that as members of the Brahmin family, they did not accept service from anyone. They didn't work for anybody. A Brahmin wouldn't do that. The Shastras strictly forbid a Brahmin to accept service from anyone. The idea is that by accepting a master by serving someone, you are accepting the occupation of a dog. This was the culture that they bought 500 years ago. This is how it was. In other words, a dog cannot thrive without having a master. And for the sake of pleasing the master, dogs offend many people. Barking. You just walk in front of a house of somebody who has a big dog in America. The dog will be snarling and barking at you. You didn't do anything. He's doing that just to please his master. Similarly, when one is a servant for someone else, he may have to perform abominable activities according to the orders of his master. Therefore, when Dabir Kash and Shakar Malik compared themselves to the position of Jagai and Madai, they found that Jagai and Madai's position was far better than them. Because they never worked for the Muslim rulers. And we are loyal subjects working for the Muslim ruler. This is why they thought we are low. And then it's supported by Shastra. Because Jagai Mada never accepted service from low-class people, they were not forced to execute abominable activities under the order of a low-class master. In fact, Jagai Madai chanted the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even though by way of blasphemy. But because they simply chanted his name, they immediately became free from the reactions to all their sinful activities, and thus they were saved. What time is getting on?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
In one of the purports, you were saying that Prabhu was saying that there's 3 births.
Mm-hmm.
So there's born from your mother, and then another birth is when you accept instruction.
The reformatory process. Yeah, they're called samskars. There's like Garbhadan samskar specifically.
The reformatory process?
Yeah.
Because I heard of the Vijayabandhu, it's twice born.
Yeah, that's there too.
But I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Thrice
So
born.
we tried this, when the parents adopt this samskar, known as Garbhadan samskar, before the birth of the child, they perform the samskar ritual. That is considered a birth. And then when one accepts a spiritual master, that is second birth. You know? Second birth. So therefore, Brahmins are called twice born. But Prabhupada is also telling us there's even another technicality when the samskars are performed before birth. That was the culture, Vedic culture. There were many other samskars that had to be performed. Many. Like wedding is a samskara. The name giving ceremony, that's another samskara. So first taking grains samskara. These things were important in Brahminical culture. So Prabhupada is just revealing a little more. And as Rupa Goswami and them pointed out, we were working for these people who kill cows, who are against Brahminical culture. We're working for them, so how fallen are we? They said, we are millions and millions of times inferior to Jagai and Madai. Sounds a little over the top. And that's how they're feeling. We are more degraded, more fallen, and more sinful than Jagai and Madai. Actually, we belong to the caste of meat eaters because we are servants of the meat eaters. Indeed, our activities are exactly like those of the meat eaters because we're always associating with such people who are inimical towards the cows and Brahmins. So you can see why they were ostracized. It's one thing like Haridas Thakur, he was not even allowed to go in the temple because he's a Muslim. He's born in a Muslim family. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him and made him the Namacharya. Mahaprabhu was teaching by example that birth is not a big deal. Look who, three of them, here we see three. Haridas Thakur and Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Lord Chaitanya, they were like chief whips in his movement. So he was really, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was really going against the grain. He was going against the norm. He was a reformer, you could say. So Prabhupada says, comments, he said, here in this purport, Prabhupada's, he's poking the government of India. He says, at the present moment in India, the presidential offices are occupied by so-called Brahmins. But the state maintains slaughterhouses. The government maintains. It's legal. This actually, it became legal during Srila Prabhupada's time with us. While Prabhupada was still alive with us, slaughterhouses were sanctioned and introduced by Indira Gandhi. She was Prime Minister. And many of her cabinet, people who work in the offices, the presidential offices, they pride themselves as we are born in Brahmin families. But yet, you're maintaining slaughterhouses. So Prabhupada says, the first principle of Vedic civilization is the avoidance of meat eating and intoxication. But presently in India, intoxication and meat eating are encouraged. And the so-called learned Brahmins who are presiding over the state of affairs have certainly become degraded according to the standard given here by Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So it's a serious thing, but India was known as the land of, it was cow killing, but slaughterhouses were not, it didn't come into being until the 70s, while Prabhupada was touring and preaching. And so he would, whenever he was in India, the lectures that he gave in India, he would harp on these points strongly. It's because he says these so-called Brahmins give sanction to slaughterhouses for the sake of a fat salary. And therefore they do not protest these abominable activities. By deprecating the principles of Vedic civilization and supporting cow killing, they are immediately degraded to the platform of mlechas and yavanas. The thing is, in the world, this is norm, right? It's normal. Everywhere you go, in France, America, wherever you go, people are, eating and killing cows, and it's accepted as norm. But for it to happen in India, where the government is sanctioned, that tells something. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. A mlecha is a meat eater, and a yavana is one who has deviated from Vedic culture. Unfortunately, such mlechas and yavanas are in executive power in the government of India. So how then can there be any peace and prosperity in the state? The two brothers, Shakar Malik and Dabir Kash, were very humbly submitted that due to their abominable activities, they were now bound by the neck and hands and had been thrown into a ditch filled with abominable stool-like objects of material sense enjoyment. There's really, really heavy purports by Prabhupada. They continued, they said, no one within the three worlds is sufficiently powerful enough to deliver us. You are our only Savior, our only hope. There is no one but you. And if you simply deliver us by your transcendental strength, certainly your name will be known as Patita Pavana. If you can deliver us, that will really give you some credibility. So, let us speak one word that is very true. There is no other object of mercy within the three worlds than us. We really need mercy. This is how seriously they consider their position. Working for the government, the Muslim government. They were intelligent men. They knew the scriptures. They were well read. most fallen. And therefore by showing us your mercy is most successful. Let the power of your mercy be exhibited through the entire universe. One last thing, my Lord. If you are not merciful upon us, then it will be very difficult to find more suitable candidates for your mercy. You won't be able to find anybody more. You know, we're just tailor-made for your mercy. We are very depressed at being unfit candidates for your mercy. Yet, since we heard of your transcendental qualities, we've become attracted to you. Indeed, we are like a dwarf who wants to capture the moon. Although we are completely unfit, still a desire to receive your mercy is awakening within our heart. We know we're not qualified to get it, but still, something's happening within us. This is how they presented themselves. Mahaprabhu says, my dear Dabi Kash, you two brothers you're actually my old servants. My dear Sakar Malik, from this day on, your names will be changed to Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatana. Now please, abandon your humility. My heart is breaking to see you so humble. They've got him. So Prabhupada comments in the purport that this was the initiation of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. He comments that he changed their names. He gave them spiritual names. This whole purport, Prabhupada gives the importance of initiation. This is how they got initiated. It's their first meeting, and he gives them initiation. Actually, Srila Prabhupada sometimes did that also. When Prabhupada went to Russia, he initiated one boy. Now there are thousands of Russian devotees. So, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand the heart of Rupa and Sanatana, he initiated them. And similarly, Prabhupada, a spiritual master of his caliber, you can just look at the person and understand their heart. So sometimes Prabhupada would initiate somebody first time. Actually, I saw Prabhupada do this in Philadelphia. I went to Philadelphia to get second initiation from New York. I was living in the New York temple. After Prabhupada gave the class, he was leaving the asasana. And one lady, she was an Indian lady, she threw herself in front of Prabhupada's path. The temple's crowded. She just threw herself on the ground and blocked him so he couldn't pass. Some of the devotees were going to try to move her out of the way, like it's an obstacle. But Prabhupada stopped them. No, it's all right. And she gathered herself, she kneeled down with all sincerity at her command. She said, please accept me as your disciple. Prabhupada. She didn't go through anybody. I mean, there was a system in place for getting initiation. But she was begging. And Prabhupada just looked at her with a most merciful look in his eyes. He said, "Give me your beads." The lady she'd been chanting. She had a bead bag around her neck. And she took the beads out and gave it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada just stroked the beads like this with his hands. And he says, "Yes, now you are my disciple." And the whole temple room went, "Hari Bol!" It was a glorious moment.
Any name?
He didn't say any name at that time. I was right there. I was right in the line. But there were many people like that who were like, Prabhupada accepted them as disciples. Even they didn't take, some of them who didn't take initiation. They did a lot of service for the movement in India, in Bombay, Vrindavan, and so on. And they knew what it means to be a disciple. And they were really giving their heart and soul. So, and Prabhupada knew their condition, so he would adjust to dealing with them. No one could say, well, they're not initiated. Prabhupada has accepted them. Sometimes you would say the initiation is a formality. A formality. Real acceptance is, and this will be found in this purport, that one wants to serve. He surrenders his life to serve. Otherwise, when he gets initiated, he has a name, but he does no service. It's like these Brahmins who say, "I'm born in a Brahmin family, but I'm doing nonsense." They're not Brahmins. It's based on quality and work, guna and karma. What are you doing? So Mahaprabhu, and look at these two brothers then became Rupa and Sanatana. He gave them these names. He changed their names. And then he sent them later. He initiated them there in Ramakeli, and he told them, he says, "You have written several letters showing me your humility." So there was some correspondence by letter to them. They were educated men. And Mahaprabhu says, "I can understand from your letters. I can understand your heart. I can understand your heart. Therefore, in order to teach you, I'm going to leave you with one verse. I sent this verse to you. But I'm going to tell you now. And here's the verse. I know where this verse is from. It says, if a woman is attached to a man other than her husband, she will appear very busy in carrying out her household duties. But within her heart, she is always relishing feelings of association with her parama. In other words, go on continuing your job, try to work for the Muslim, but cultivate Krishna consciousness internally. And don't do anything so that they'll suspect you. they did. They went back, but they could only do it for so long because it was burning inside of them, and eventually Rupa Goswami quit and ran away. And Sanatan followed him. But this was Mahaprabhu's advice in the form of a verse that carry on with your duties and don't act in any way for them to suspect what's making your heart beat. And soon we'll be together. And they came, such great devotees. So we have they're a shining example. It's a nice section of Chaitanya Chaitamrita because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami thought it's important to put this part of Mahaprabhu's pastimes, how he dealt with Rupa and Sanatana, how he pulled them in when they were completely rejected by Brahminical society. But like he says, I could understand your heart, what you were saying to me when you wrote me those letters. Another point too is that we know later on it becomes clear that Mahaprabhu said it. He said, "You're my servants. You've been my servants." I'm not sure if he used the word eternally, but it became clear later on that who they were in the spirit, who they are, not were, who they are in the spiritual world. Rupa Goswami, both of them are manjaris. But I say this because all of the associates of Mahaprabhu, they're Nityasiddhas. But even when the Nityasiddhas come here, they don't know who they are in the spiritual world. They don't know. But the Lord, He reveals who they are. He tells them. One day, in Navadvip, He began telling everybody, you are so-and-so. You are so-and-so. And of course, they'll be happy to hear that, wow, I have a position. But we forget, because we change bodies, we forget we don't know. But the Lord, because He never changes His body is Satchidananda. He remembers everything. And He reveals, He said. So He told both of them, you are actually my servants. And here they were, with all their humility, they're saying, we are the most unqualified form, blah, blah, blah. But Mahaprabhu knew who they were. Eventually he says, I came to Ramakeli just to collect you. I came just to pick you up. And they became part of the 6 Goswamis. So it became evident they are great personalities. But at the time, they didn't think they were, they didn't know, and nobody else thought they were. So therefore they said, we are more holy than Jagai Madai. Okay? Stop there. Chaitanya Charitamrita.